Welcome to this presentation. You are watching VLSI Design Lecture Series. And today we are going to speak about complementary pass transistor logic or simply CPL. CPL is an improvement on CVL. CVL is slow because one side of the gate pulls down and the cross-coupled PMOS transistor pulls the other side up. CPL resolves this problem by making one half of the gate pull up while the other half pulls down. CPL is a dual rail form of pass transistor logic. Cross coupling for rail to rail swing is optional. Here you can see the circuit diagram of a CPL here, and it is approved or you can say it is a increased version of the pass transistor logic where the path consists of a cascade of CPL gates, and the inverters can be viewed equally well as being on the output of one stage or the input of the next. So this diagram, the second diagram, redraws the multiplexer to include the inverters from the previous stage that drives the diffusion input but exclude the output drivers. And this third diagram shows the multiplexer drawn at the transistor level. You can observe that this is identical to the CVSL gate, except that the internal node of the stack can be pulled up through the weak PMOS transistors in the inverters. So this diagram shows the alternative representation of CPL. When the gate switches, one side pulls down well through its NMOS transistor and the other side pulls up, and the CPL can be constructed without cross-coupled PMOS transistors, but the output would only rise to VDD minus VT or slightly lower because of the NMOS transistors experience the body effect. This causes static power because the output inverter will be turned slightly on. Adding weak cross-coupled devices helps bring the rising output to the supply rail while only slightly slowing the falling output. The output inverters can be low skew to reduce the sensitivity to the slowly rising output. Now let us move on to double pass transistor logic or DPL. DPL is a double rail form of CMOS TG, that is the CMOS transmission gate optimized to use single pass transistors where only known 0 or 1 needs to be passed. It passes good high and low logic levels without the need for level restoring devices. However, the PMOS transistors contribute substantial area and capacitance but do not help the delay much, resulting in large and relatively slow gates. So this diagram shows the AND NAND combination and XOR and XNOR combination of DPL. And the next what we are going to see is about the DCV SPG, which is nothing but a differential cascade voltage switch with pass gate logic. This DCV SPG eliminates the output inverters from CPL. Without these buffers, the output of the DCV SPG gate makes a poor input to the diffusion terminal of another DCV SPG gate because a long unrestored chain of NMOS transistors would be formed, leading to the delay and noise problem. And now let us move on to circuit pitfalls, which are the reasons for some of the circuits to fail. So circuit designers tend to use simple circuits because they are robust. Elaborate circuits, especially those with more transistors, tend to add more area, more capacitance and more things that can go wrong. Static CMOS is the most robust circuit family and should be used whenever possible. And today we are going to see a variety of circuit pitfalls that can cause chips to fail. And these are some of the circuit pitfalls. One is threshold drop, ratio failures, leakage, charge sharing, power supply noise, coupling, minority carrier injection, backgate coupling, diffusion input noise sensitivity, race conditions, delay matching, metastability, hotspots and soft errors, and process sensitivity. Let us see one by one. And pass transistors are good at pulling in a preferred direction but only swing to within VT of the rail in other direction. And this is called threshold drop. For example, a pass transistor driving, let us take an example, a pass transistor driving logic 1 to an inverter. That is what here you can see here. The output of the pass transistor only rises to VDD minus VT. Worse yet, the body effect increases this threshold voltage because VSB is greater than 0 for pass transistor. The degraded level is insufficient to completely turn off the PMOS transistors in the inverter, resulting in static power dissipation. Indeed, for low VDD, the degraded output can be so poor that the inverter no longer sees a valid input logic level VIH. Finally, the transition becomes lethargic as the output approaches VDD minus VT, and the threshold drops were sometimes tolerable in older processes where VDD is less than 5 VT, greater than 5 VT, but are seldom acceptable in modern processes where the power supply has been scaled down faster than the threshold voltage to VDD greater than 3 VT. So as a result, the pass transistors must be replaced by full transmission gates or may use weak PMOS feedback transistor to pull up the output to VDD, as was done in several pass transistors families. And the next is ratio failures. The pseudo-NMOS circuits illustrated ratio constraints that occur when a node is simultaneously pulled up and down, typically by strong NMOS transistors and weak PMOS transistors. The weak transistors must be sufficiently small that the output level falls below VAL of the next stage by some noise margin. Ideally, the output should fall below VT so the next stage doesn't contact static power. Ratioed circuits should be checked in the SF and FS corners. And ratioing is especially sensitive for diffusion inputs. And this figure shows the static latch with a weak feedback inverter. The weak feedback inverter must be weak enough to be overcome by the series combination of the pass transistor and the gate driving the D input. This cannot be verified by checking the latch alone. It requires a global check of the latch and driver. Worse yet, if the driver is far away, the series wire resistance must also be considered. As you can see in this figure, the series wire resistance is also considered. And next is leakage, and the leakage current is a growing problem as technology scales, especially for dynamic nodes and wide NOR structures. Recall that leakage arises from subthreshold conduction, gate tunneling, and reverse biased diode leakage. Subthreshold conduction is presently the most important component because VT is low and getting lower, but gate tunneling will become profoundly important too as oxide thickness diminishes. Besides causing the static power dissipation, the leakage can result in incorrect values on dynamic or weakly driven nodes. The time required for leakage to disturb a dynamic node by some voltage V is given by the T is equal to C node into delta V divided by I leak. And the next circuit pitfalls which we are going to see is charge sharing. Charge sharing can also occur when dynamic gate drive pass transistors. For example, you can see in this figure, this diagram shows a dynamic inverter driving a transmission gate. Suppose that the dynamic gate has been pre-charged and the output is floating high. Further, suppose the transmission gate is off and Y is equal to 0. If the transmission gate turns on, charge will be shared between X and Y, disturbing the dynamic output. And the most important problem is power supply noise. Usually VDD and ground are not constant across a large chip. It may vary at some points because both are subject to power supply noise caused by IR drops and DI by DT noise. IR drops occurs across the resistance R of the power supply grid between the supply pins and a block drawing a current I. And DI by DT noise occurs across the power supply inductance L as the current rapidly changes. DI by DT noise can be especially important for blocks that are idle for several cycles. So here you can see the variations of power supply IR drops. And the hot spots are nothing but if the transistor performance degrades with temperature, so care has to be taken to avoid the excessively hot spots. So these can be caused by non-uniform power dissipation even when the overall power consumption is within budget. The non-uniform temperature distribution leads to variation in delay between gates across the chip. The full chip temperature plots can be generated through the electrothermal simulation, and this can begin when the floor plan and the preliminary power estimates for each unit are available. You can see a thermal map of the titanium-2. And the next problem here is the minority carrier injection. It is sometimes possible to drive a signal momentarily outside the rails, either through capacitive coupling or through inductive ringing or IO drivers. In such a case, the junctions between drain and body may momentarily become forward biased, causing current to flow into the substrate. And this effect is called minority carrier injection. The drain of an NMOS transistor is driven below ground, injecting electrons into the p-type substrate. These can be collected on a nearby transistor diffusion node, disturbing a high voltage on the node. So this is a particular problem for dynamic nodes and sensitive analog circuits. So this is how the minority carriers are injected into the next nodes. That's why it's creating problem. Thank you.